In today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make my Cooper blanket crochet pattern. This beautiful pattern can be worked in a variety of colorways. It uses only 4 colors of yarn. Now I worked this one in Lion Brand jeans yarn, but I love this pattern so much. It's super simple, just uses a basic granny square stitch, that I've actually done it in a variety of different colors. So here's the most recent one that I worked up for Boggy Creek. And I worked up a peach variation that I've already donated to Project Linus. This blanket, depending on your yarn weight, will turn out to be around 40 by 40. So this blanket uses worsted weight. It is 40 by 40. And this one with the Lion Brand jeans yarn, it's a little bit of a softer yarn, not quite as thick, and it's 39 by 39. On the website, I have a coloring page where you can plan out your colors before you get started. And I also have a lot of predetermined color palettes that I've worked up for you. Now, this blanket, by the way it's designed, is a 4-color pattern, but I do have 3 color options as well. So when you go to the website, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get the coloring page as well as the alternate color palettes absolutely for free. They'll be emailed to you. This is a super basic pattern. We're going to start off with a granny square, then we're going to make that into a mitered granny square, and then from there we'll use the corner to corner granny pattern to finish off the blanket. So if you're a beginner, don't fret, you'll be able to handle this pattern no problem. Please remember to use the timestamps below for more advanced crocheters. You can skip ahead to any parts you want to find. And you'll find the written pattern on my website at craftinginthenight.com. Let's get started. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be making a blanket in this colorway to donate for Boggy Creek. I've also made this blanket for Project Linus as well as to gift to friends and family. To get started, we'll make 4 different mitered granny square blocks in 2 different color schemes. So block A is going to start with this green color and then go green, white, orange, blue, or turquoise, which is what I'm using. And then block B is going to go white, orange, turquoise, and green. What I typically will do is start with block A and make the 2 centers. And then what I can do is when the next round, I'll make all of the white. So I'll make the white middles, and then I'll add the white onto the center. And then I'm done with white for a little bit, and then I'll do my oranges. I'm done with orange for a little bit, and so on. So let's get started with how to make the granny square. Now, if you already have a granny square pattern that you like, feel free to use that. I'm going to go through it just so that beginners can work on this pattern, but please feel free to use the timestamps in the description if you want to skip ahead. I like to start my granny squares with a magic circle, but you could also use a chain 4 and then join with the slip stitch. So I'll just get my magic circle started. I do that by making an X around my 2 fingers, insert under this upper right leg, pick up the upper left leg, twist, yarn over, pull through, and then I'll secure that down. Chain 3. And then I like to kind of sort out my tail so that it's hanging free. And now I have my magic loop or magic ring, magic circle, whatever you call it. This chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. So I'm going to place 2 more double crochets into the circle to form my first granny cluster. So yarn over, insert my hook under both the tail and into the circle, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So I'll do that again. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I'll chain 1, and now I'll work 3 double crochets into the circle. So the granny cluster is 3 double crochets. Again, this chain 3 counted as the first double crochet. So 1, 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1. We'll work 3 more. Oop, I want to get under both. Chain 1. And then I'll go ahead and repeat that 2 more times, and I'll meet you back when I'm ready to join to the starting chain 3. So now I've worked a total of 4 granny clusters. So there's 1 and then a chain 1, and then 2 and a chain 1. It's right here. 3 and a chain 1. So again, my granny cluster is 3 double crochets, and then this is my 4th one. I have yet to chain 1, so I'll go ahead and do that. And now I'm going to kind of close up the circle by pulling on the tail. And then at the top of my starting chain 3, the first chain 3 that counted as a double crochet. So if you have trouble finding the top of it, you can look and see, okay, here's the top of this double crochet. Here's the top of this double crochet. So this is where I need to work my slip stitch into. So I'm going to insert, yarn over, and then pull through both loops on hook. So that's the first round for the granny square. To start round 2, we're going to chain 3, turn our work, and then into this chain 1 space, work 2 double crochets. Once again, that chain 3 is going to count as our first double crochet. So to work a granny cluster, we're going to put 2 more in there, chain 1, and then put 3 more double crochets into the chain 1 space to make the corner. So the corners for our granny square are going to be 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. Now you can work this granny square any way that you like. So if you prefer to work a granny square as granny cluster with a chain 2, then feel free to do that. For my project and for the gauge that I got, I like a little bit of a tighter stitch, since sometimes I donate these blankets for babies. And so I always use a chain 1, even though this blanket's going for Boggy Creek. So across this space, likewise, I don't chain 1. In some granny square patterns you do. Again, that's your preference. So I've finished my granny cluster here, and I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the next corner and put another 3 double crochets. Chain 1 and 3 double crochets. And once again, we're going to repeat that into the next 2 corners, and I'll meet you back when I'm ready to join and close up round 2. I've completed the last granny cluster in the last corner. So again, each corner is going to be 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. Once I've finished my last corner, I want to join with the slip stitch to the top of the starting chain 3. So I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull through both loops on hook. Chain 3, start row 3, turn your work, and now we have spaces in the corner, and we also have spaces running down the side. So the way that we work the spaces running down the side is just to place 1 granny cluster in each space down the side. So our starting chain 3 is going to count as the first double crochet, and I'll place 2 more double crochets into this space. And then I'll place my 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets to make my corner. And then again, just place only 3 double crochets into the side. I'm going to repeat that around, and I'll meet you back when I'm ready to finish off round 3 and start round 4. Finished my last corner. Once again, I'm going to join with the slip stitch into the top of the starting chain 3, which is right here. And to work round 4, we're going to chain 3, turn our work, and again, we're on the side, so I'm going to work 2 more double crochets into this space. The chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So 1, 2. Next, I'm at a corner, so I'm going to work 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. And now that we're on row 4, there's 2 spaces along the side. In each of these spaces, I'm going to work 3 double crochets or just 1 granny cluster. And then in the corner, again, I'm going to work 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochets in each of these side spaces. And again, I do not chain in between them. I just go finish my 3rd double crochet and then go straight into the first one for the next space. And then I'll work my corner and I'll repeat around and meet you back. I'm back where I started, and once again I'm going to join with the slip stitch to the top of my starting chain 3. I can get in there. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail so that I can weave in my ends. And to finish off, I'm just going to yarn over and pull through and secure that down. So here's our first granny square. It's 4 rows. And from here, we'll make a mitered granny square. So we'll only be working up from 2 rows. Show you how to do that in the next part. For this color that I'm working up, we worked this green square together. However, the next color for green is white, and that's not going to show well on camera. So I've gone ahead and worked up a white square so that I can show you the next step, which is forming the mitered granny square, which will be worked in the color orange. To get started with orange, I'm going to form a slip knot. You can do this however you like. Insert my hook. Now I'm going to take a look at my granny square, and I like to make sure that I'm working over the bump where I weaved in my end, which is right here. So you can kind of see that. I know it's white, but on the green square you can see it a little bit more clearly. I want to work over this, so because I'm working from right to left, I'm going to always start in this corner and then I'll work over that spot with the next color. So here is my corner. I want to start in a corner. I have my orange yarn. I'm going to insert into the corner and slip stitch. So just pull up and then pull through. Chain 4. This counts as a double crochet chain 1. From here, I'll skip right over into this side space in between granny clusters, and I'm going to work, because again it's a side, I'm just going to work 1 granny cluster, which is 3 double crochets into this space. Now I'm going to skip to the next space and again work 3 double crochets. And one more space on the side, again getting 3 double crochets. When we reach the corner, we're going to work the corner as 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. And then again working up the side. Now we'll want to stop before we hit the corner, so I'm just going to work the spaces along this side. Now for the corner, we're just going to work a chain 1 and then 1 double crochet. And this is the first row, row 5, the first row of our mitered granny square. So this is the first row that actually makes the miter. To crochet row 6, we're going to chain 3, turn our work, and now we have this space in here. So anytime you have 1 double crochet going into the corner, the next row above it's going to be 3 double crochets or a granny cluster. So I'm going to go ahead, my chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. I'm going to work 2 more in this space. And then I'm going to go ahead across the side, place my granny cluster in each space, work my corner, granny cluster in each space, and I'll meet you back when I get over here and I'll show you how to finish off this row and start the next row. So ending row 6, again we have this starting chain 4. I've worked my last granny cluster on the side, and I'm going to go ahead and place 1 granny cluster into this chain 4 space. And that's the last stitch for round 6. To start round 7, I'm going to chain 4. And it's really going to repeat round 5, where we're going to turn our work, jump over, work a granny cluster, again, I'll continue up the side, work the corner as 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. I'll continue up the other side, and I'll meet you back when I'm ready to work the final stitch to show you how to finish off row 7. Here I am at the end of row 7, and what I want to do is work a chain 1, finish my last granny cluster, chain 1, and work a double crochet into the top of the chain 3. And again, I can identify the top of this double crochet is here, the top of this second double crochet is here. So this stitch is going to be the top of my chain 3. I want to double crochet into that stitch, so I'll yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And from here, we'll continue to repeat rows 6 and 7 all the way up, and I'll meet you back when we get to row 16 because we will do something slightly different. So I'll meet you back at the end of row 15 so I can show you how to get started on row 16 and then how to end row 16, which is a little bit different than a traditional mitered granny square for this pattern. You can change colors however you like, but I wanted to show you how I do it. When I end off at any particular color, because I'm working all of, for example, the orange section at once on all 4 of my squares, I'll leave it like this with just a long tail, so that when I'm ready to start the next color, in this case it's this turquoise color, what I'll do is pull out that last yarn over. So I'll stick my hook back in through the 2 loops. I'll grab my new color. Make sure I leave a long tail behind, however long I'm going to need to weave in my ends. I'll hold it behind my work, yarn over, and pull through with the new color. And then I'll chain up my 4. And now I can pull both tails here. And that is how I do my color changes so that I don't have to use any knots. So when I go back through, I'll weave in these ends, but now I'm ready to continue on to work the blue. Okay, I just wanted to show you that color change. I'll be back to show you how to work the final round of our mitered granny squares. The last row with the last color is worked similar to every other row before. However, you want to place 4 double crochets in the 2 end corners. So let me show you. You're going to chain 3, turn your work, and instead of placing 2 double crochets in this space, I'm going to place 3 double crochets. So for just this starting corner, and then again for the ending corner, I will work 4 double crochets. So for the rest of this side, I'm going to continue just to work 3 double crochets, because again, we're only putting 4 at the very start and the very end. Okay, I'll repeat all the way around, and then I'll meet you back. So for this last row, I've worked again 3 double crochets going all up the side, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the corner, and then 3 double crochets all up the opposite side. But for the last set of double crochets, we want to work 4. So into this corner, I'll go ahead and work 4 double crochets. So there's the last set of double crochets worked. There's 4 in that corner. Now I can cut my yarn. I'll yarn over and pull through. And then I'll weave in my ends. Now it's important to note when you weave in your ends, one of the things I do is I like to go through kind of the middle of the stitches. Don't work through this last leg. We'll actually use that to do our joining round. Once you have your 4 squares done, so you're going to have 2 with the same colorway and then another 2 that are similar, you just start 1 row earlier. So you can see here how they just start 1 row apart. The next thing that we need to do is go ahead and add the joining color to the squares. So there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could use the join as you go technique. You could border the squares and then sew them together, or you could use a continuous join as you go. Whatever your favorite method of joining granny squares, that's what you should use. I'm going to show in this video a brief look at the join as you go technique. The first thing that you want to do is kind of get an idea of what your layout's going to look like. So to do that, just go ahead and put your squares so that the opposite corners, so that the same color are opposite each other. And this is what your layout's going to look like. And then of course we're going to join with our joining color. For this pattern, it's the white. For this colorway, it's the white. When I start with the join as you go technique, I tend to start in the corner of one of the last row that was worked, and then I'll work my way across, which is fairly simple, and then I'll work a corner here in between my 3 double crochets. So in the 4 double crochets, we crocheted 1 extra double crochet. That's where we're going to work the corner, and then we'll work all the way up. So I'll be back to show you the detail of how that's done. Now for the first square, I'm going to crochet the border color all the way around it and then finish off. And then for the subsequent squares, use the join as you go technique. But again, join the squares in the way that makes the most sense for you. Now I know white isn't an ideal color to show you stitches, but for this we already know how to do the granny stitch because we've already worked up our squares. So right now I'm just showing you how to do the border using your joining color. So I'm going to make a slip knot and insert my hook. I'll join with the slip stitch in the chain one space in the corner. Now keep in mind, because we've turned every row, there is no real right side or wrong side, but if you like the look of a particular side best, go ahead and join with that side facing you. So I'll slip stitch, chain 3. This counts as my first double crochet. Work 2 more double crochets in the corner. And then down this side, I'm going to work 3 double crochets in each of the spaces. So again, we already know how to do this, so I'll meet you when I come back to the end of this row. So I'm at the end of the first side on my joining row. Now I'm going to locate the space. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 double crochets. We're going to go in between the last one, at the third one, and the fourth one. So into this space, I'm going to work 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets to make the corner. So there's 3 double crochets, chain 1, and I'll rotate this just a little bit to make it easier to work with. 1, 2, 3. Now I know, again, the white isn't the easiest to see, especially on the white background, but it's the same way that we've been working the corners. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. And now we're going to work our granny clusters into each of these spaces along the side, including this first one. So I'm going to go ahead and place 3 double crochets in here. And then I'll work my 3 double crochets all the way down the side in these spaces. As you're crocheting down the next side, you're going to hit a spot in your work where you have a space and then the corner from your very first granny square. So we see that's my next stitch here. To work this, what you want to do is place a double crochet into the space above the granny square, yarn over. So we're going to double crochet 2 together now. To do that, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Don't pull through these last 2 like you would a normal double crochet. You're going to yarn over again and insert into the corner of your granny square, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook. So that's a double crochet 2 together, and then we'll place 1 more stitch in that corner of the granny square. So it does make a little bit of a wider stitch for right now, but that will even out later on. And then again, I'm going to continue down, and once I hit the corner, I'm going to work my granny cluster. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. I'll meet you back when I get to the opposite side. Again, anytime that you are meeting this section where the granny square joins to the first mitered row, you're going to do a double crochet 2 together across the 2 stitches, and then a regular double crochet into the space created by the first row of the miter. Then you'll continue up as normal. And again, when you get to the corner, you have your 4 double crochets on your last color row. That's so that you can place your corner into this in between the 3rd and 4th double crochets without changing the way that this section looks. So I'll meet you back when I've worked all the way around, And then I'll show you how to join with the slip stitch to our starting chain 3. All right, we're back where we started. And again, we started in a corner, and all of our corners need 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. And we started with 3 double crochets, so we're going to go ahead and work 3 double crochets into the corner. And then I'll chain 1 and join with the slip stitch to the top of this chain 3. And then I'll go ahead and cut my yarn, leaving a long enough tail to weave in. And I like to yarn over and pull that through. And then I'll weave in my ends. Again, you could use a continuous join as you go, but I tend to use this method. So I'm going to weave in this end, and then I'll show you how to join the next block to this one. Okay, I got that end weaved in, and now you have a square that looks something like this. Now keep in mind that your corners at the end of your miter may look a little funny just because you worked into that extra stitch. Don't worry about that. It's going to even itself out. You're going to hardly notice it in the final project. So next we need to get the opposite colored square. So this square, the joining edge, the one with the miter, is blue. So the square that I need to join to it is green. Okay. So I'm going to get my white started in the same way. And it really depends how you want to work this. Now that you're kind of familiar with how the border works up, you could start in an opposite corner, work around, and then join as you go from here. That's probably a little bit easier. Also keep in mind you don't have to start in a corner. Even though I did show you how to start in a corner, you don't have to. So for example, let's start here. Actually, because on one of the sides you're going to join 2 of them. So when you join these 2, it's going to be 1. If you join the other green one next, you're just going to join one side. Your very last square, you're going to join 2 sides. When you have to join 2 sides, it's easier if you're going to start in a non-joining side. So that's what I'll do here. I'm just going to start towards the end of a non-joining side. I'll do a slip stitch, chain 3, and then I'm just going to do 2 double crochets into this space. Again, I know the white isn't great, but we already know how to do this. Then I'm going to go into the next space and work my 3 double crochets. And now I'm in the corner of that last row of my miter, so I've got 4 double crochets, and I want to work my corner into the spot between the 3rd and the 4th stitch. So that's going to be 3, chain 1, and 3. I'm going to continue down this side until I hit the corner, and then we'll join along this side, and I'll show you how we do that. I've reached the corner, and I've placed my first 3 double crochets and done my chain 1. Now I want to go ahead and join the block, the second block. And the big thing is you want to make sure that you orient the block correctly. So pay attention to the diagram that is provided in the written pattern. But just so that you know, you have your starting granny square here, and you have a long side. You want to join on a long side, but you want your granny square to be towards the outside of the blanket. So it really depends which side you're joining, but your granny square should point away. So each of your 4 corners is going to have a granny square in the corner. So just make sure, however you're joining, that there's a granny square, your starting granny square is in the corner. I know saying granny square may be confusing because these are mitered granny squares, but in this case I just mean that your starting granny square is in a corner. So now that I have the two properly aligned to join, I'm going to slip stitch into the opposite corner of the block I'm joining to, chain 1, and because we've worked only the first 3 double crochets in our corner on the block we're joining, I'm going to work another 3 double crochets. Now I'll chain 1 and locate the next space between clusters, which is here, and you just want to keep everything lined up. So we have a corner, then we have 1 each. Now we're going to join in the space. So slip stitch, and then I'll chain 1 and place 3 double crochets into the next spot. Once again, I'll chain 1, slip stitch to my first block, chain 1, and then work 3 double crochets. I'll meet you back when I get to the corner and show you how to work that. Okay, now I've reached where I need to put my corner. So I've already joined and chained 1. And then here again is the space between the 3rd and the 4th double crochet. And I want to work my corner stitch in there. So I'll do my first 3 double crochets. Chain 1, slip stitch into the corner space of the square that I'm joining to, chain 1, and now I'm going to open this up because I'm only joining on one side, and work my 3 double crochets to complete my corner. And again, because I happen to land on this spot in my mitered granny, I'm going to place another 3 double crochets into this space. And then 3 double crochets all the way along the side, working the corner as normal. And then when I come back around, I'll join with a slip stitch to the top of this chain 3. I'm not going to show joining here. We've already done that a bunch of times. What I will do is finish joining the next 2 squares. So the first square, there's no joining. The second square, if you're using the join as you go method, you're joining on one side. The third square, you're also joining on one side. And then the fourth and final square, you're joining on 2 sides. So I'll show you briefly how to join on 2 sides. The hardest part is wrapping the corner in the middle. So I'll meet you back when I'm ready to do that. Okay, here we are, and I've already worked up the one side of the join from my last block. And this is the block that has 2 sides that are joined. So the thing I wanted to show you is I've worked the first 3 double crochets into the corner. I'm going to chain 1. And now we have where I've already joined the other blocks. So what I'll do is I'll slip stitch into the opposing corner when I'm joining 2 sides. So I'm going to slip stitch into the opposing corner, chain 1. And now it's just like we joined the other side. So we're going to place 3 double crochets to finish off this corner here. Chain 1, slip stitch to join. So I'm going to continue down the rest of this side and I'll meet you back. As with the other squares, once we reach back to the end of the row, we're going to want to work our corner into this space between the third double crochet and the fourth double crochet. So I've already slip stitched and chain 1. So after I work my first cluster, I'll chain 1, slip stitch into the corner space from the previous block, chain 1 again, and then continue working down the side, not joining anything. I'll meet you back when I slip stitch to the top of the starting chain 3 so that I can show you how to work the next round. Once you get back around to where you started, you want to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. And now you're going to chain up 3. Turn your work and work 2 double crochets back into this space. And then continue working a second row of white all the way around. Just wanted to show you up the side how this gets worked. Now remember, at the end of our mitered row, we had worked a corner in the space between double crochets and then jumped right into the next one. So you want to be sure that you'll put 3 double crochets in between those 2 sets of granny clusters. And then when you come over to where you had joined the 2 squares, you want to work into the joining section instead of into the corners. So here are my corners, but I want to work my granny cluster right into the middle there where I joined these 2 blocks together. And then again, we're going to pop over the corner into the space between the next 2 granny clusters. All right, once again, I'm going to finish off the second row of this white. I'm going to add 2 rows of orange, which is correct for my colorway. And then I'll meet you back when we're going to start the sides. This is how we're looking now. We've joined our 4 blocks with the white. And again, this would be different depending on how you're working your colors. And then I've added 2 rows of the orange, and that's just the regular granny stitch all the way around. Next, I want to add 1 row of granny stitch all the way around with the green, and then I'll start mitering my corners. So the way that the rest of this project works up, we're going to miter the corners, do a mitered granny square on each side with the green, and that kind of gives us our unique geometric shape. One of the things you can do at this point is measure your project across from corner to corner. Right now I'm measuring 38 inches, and that's going to tell you roughly how big your blanket's going to be. Keep in mind that we're going to add another row, plus once we're finished mitering with the green, we're going to add a border row, and you can actually make your border as big as you need to hit the size requirements for your blanket. For this blanket, it's going to Boggy Creek. It's going to be about 40 by 40, and that size has worked well for Project Linus as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 round of the granny stitch on. Now, when you do that, you want to start in the corner, and I'll show you how in just a moment. Yeah, this is the same as we've been doing when we're using the standard granny stitch round. For the corner, because of the way that we're going to work the miter, in other rows, it hasn't always been as important where you started. For this row, you do want to start in the corner. So I'm going to make a slip knot and then join with the slip stitch, chain 3, and then work 2 double crochets, and then go ahead and continue working all the way around. So I'm going to work around this project, and then I'll meet you back when I'm ready to join here. And when I join here, I'm going to work 3 double crochets into this corner to form the other side of the corner. Chain 1, join with a slip stitch here, and then we'll start our first miter. So I'll be back as soon as I'm done working this 1 row all the way around. It's a good thing I had double checked my color positioning, because the green that I had filmed the previous part was the wrong color, but luckily I caught it after a couple stitches and I fixed it. So that's why there's a color change here. I've reached the end. I've just put 1 row of the blue color. And now I'm going to work 3 double crochets into the corner. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then slip stitch into the top of the starting chain 3. From here, we'll begin working the corner to corner granny, and we'll be decreasing every row so that we form a triangle. So we'll start with the decrease by just chaining 4, and then we won't work anything into the corner here. We're just going to skip into the next space and work our granny cluster. Now, for the most part, this is going to be the same as we've been doing. I'm going to go ahead and work granny clusters all the way across, and I'll meet you just before I work this next corner, which will be a decrease. When you get back to the corner, you're going to work your last granny cluster, chain 1, and then double crochet into that corner space. So this is just like a corner to corner granny square, except that we're working the sides, each side individually. So we'll do this triangle for this side, and then we'll repeat for the other side. So now I'm going to chain 4, turn my work, and skip over this space and work my granny cluster in this next space. So every time we get to the end, we're going to decrease. I'll show you one more time when I get to the other side, just so that you're clear on how we're going to proceed up this blanket. So each time we go across for each row, we're going to be decreasing the number of granny clusters. Eventually it's going to come to a point where there will only be 1 granny cluster left, and then we'll repeat for the other 3 sides. On this opposite side, I've worked my last granny cluster. I'm going to chain 1 and double crochet into the corner. And now I'll chain 4, and you'll start every row with the chain 4 and turn. And then again, skip over this space because we're decreasing, and work 3 double crochets into the next space. Okay, and then when we get all the way across to the end, we're not going to go into the corner. Now we'll go and we'll work our granny cluster here, chain 1, and double crochet into this space. And so that'll start to get a diagonal all the way up. To demonstrate the end of the row, I'll work my 3 double crochets. We can identify the edges here, so I'll put 3 double crochets into this next space. Then chain 1 and double crochet into the edge space. Now again, to turn, it's going to be the same for each row. We're going to chain 4, turn our work, skip over this space and place our granny cluster 3 double crochets into the next space. All right, I'll meet you back when we're at the top of this triangle and show you how to finish this triangle off and start on the triangle for the next side. So I'm here towards the end of this triangle, and you can kind of see worked all the way up, decreasing every row. Don't worry about the edge. We're going to add a border when we're all done, but every row there's been a decrease. And so now I have my last 2 granny clusters. So I've already chained 1. I'm going to chain 3 more. Work that one, then the next one. Chain 1 and double crochet in the side. We'll work the last one the same way we've been doing, so chain 4 and turn. Work my last granny cluster for the top of this triangle. Chain 1, double crochet into the side, and now we're going to chain 4 and join with the slip stitch to the other side. Then I'm going to cut my tails, pull through, and I'll weave in my end. That will give us a space here at the top to work the corner when we work our border. So that is the triangle on one side, and now we need to do the triangle on the other 3 sides. To get started with the next side, we want to start in the corner space, and we'll start with the slip stitch. I'll make a slip knot with my blue color, insert into this chain 1 space in the corner, chain 4, and then work my granny cluster, my first granny cluster, in the next space between granny clusters. And that's how you'll start the next 2 sides. Even when you're starting on a side where you already worked one of the triangles, you're still going to place your slip stitch here and then work across. So this blanket is done and all of the ends are weaved in. We've done the 4 corners all in the same color. Now it's time to work the border. To work the border, I'm going to make a slip knot with my border color. And then into the corner space, so on any corner we have this loop. I'm going to slip stitch, chain 3, and then work 4 double crochets into this space. So I'm just going to move that stitch over. So this first chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So in the corners, we're going to place 5 double crochets. Once you work your corner, you'll place 3 double crochets into the next space. And then 2 into the next space. And you're only working in the spaces, which makes making this border really quick and easy. And then you'll repeat a sequence of 3, 2, 3, 2. So in the next space, I'll put 3. And then 2 in the next. And that's really all there is to it for this border. I'm going to continue and working up the border until I finish the project. Again, it's very simple, just 3, 2, 3, 2 all the way around. In each corner, you'll place 5 double crochets, and then you'll join back with the slip stitch to the top of this starting chain 3 to finish off your blanket. Now this puts a nice even edge on the blanket, and you can fancy it up by adding a ruffle or anything else you like if you wanted this to be for a girl, for example. But I like how this nice simple edging really makes it where the blanket could be unisex if that's the look you're going for. It could be for a boy or a girl. Now the other thing that you could do is if your finished project isn't the size you need it to be, let's say it turned out 36 and you needed it 40, you could continue adding border rows until the project reached the size that you wanted it. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope your blanket turned out amazing. If you want another fun pattern to crochet, check out my double triple ripple crochet pattern.